Hello everyone and welcome to Noodle Journey, your destination for detailed and informative reviews of the instant noodle universe. And today, I've got a scoop for you. This is a variety from Ramen Talk that hasn't even made it to their website yet for sale. And so I can't tell you what the official English product name for this will be, but I'm just going to call it Tomato Meatball Ramen. Before we get started, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy these in-depth reviews. If you're new to my channel, or you're not familiar with the Chinese brand Ramen Talk, please check out my earlier reviews of Ramen Talk's other products, episodes 77 through 83. Ramen Talk might be one of the best kept secrets in the instant noodle world, and I use air quotes there because they don't like to be called instant, because you can very easily order all of their products from their website for direct shipping, both in the US and the UK, and what you get in each of these packs is exactly what's shown on the front, meat and toppings included. To my knowledge, you can't find shelf-stable noodles like this anywhere else in the US, probably even the UK, that have real meat in them. 6 of the 7 products of theirs that I reviewed earlier were terrific, and I would even say a couple of them are contenders for my first top 10 list that I promise I'm working on. So imagine my surprise when I walked into one of my local Asian convenience stores, S-Mart, which was where I found Ramen Talk for the first time last year, and lo and behold, this new flavor was staring right at me. So of course I bought it. This was $5.49 at S-Mart, and hopefully if and when Ramen Talk starts selling this on their websites, it will be in the same price range. Like their other flavors, this is a premium product and is priced accordingly because of all the extra ingredients. I did a deep Google search to see if this was currently available anywhere else, and it looks like some Asian vendors like Taobao and Z Store sell it, and you can find it by searching for keywords like meatball tomato ramen, tomato bisque ramen. For some reason, one site is calling it 3.5 tomato ramen, which I guess means there are 3.5 tomatoes in each bag of this? No idea. I'll update the video description with purchase links if this becomes more widely available, but of course check your local Asian markets if they import Chinese noodles. If you live in the greater Philadelphia region, go to one of the S-Mart stores nearby to find these. So since I don't think I need to explain what a tomato broth with meatballs is, let's open this up and show you what's inside. Okay, so first off, we've got Ramen Talk's super good wheat noodles, which have an amazing texture. You can hopefully see the little specks of wheat in here, which is normal for their manufacturing process. It's what gives it that texture. Then we've got a pouch of meatballs, which I think are beef based on what I was able to translate on the package. Pretty sizable too. I'm gonna guess there's maybe 4 or 5 in here by the way it feels. That's pretty generous. We've got a tomato broth pouch. I'm not sure if there are going to be chunks of tomatoes in here like what's pictured on the package, but probably not based on the way this feels. And then we've got a dried garnish packet, which I believe contains green onions and sesame seeds. Now the packaging shows those chunks of tomatoes and corn, and I am pretty certain I don't feel any corn or tomatoes in any of these unless they're hiding in here with the meatballs. But I'll find out all of that for sure when I cook it. Now the cooking process for this is a little different than Ramen Talk's other products, and if you don't have a translation app handy, this is what the instructions say. With Ramen Talk's other products, you would normally cook the noodles separately and then have a second pot of boiling water that you add to your serving bowl to steep the broth and meat. This time around, the broth, meatballs, and tomatoes are going in with the noodles while they cook. So 500 milliliters of water brought to a boil, add literally everything except for this garnish packet, put it in your bowl, and then add the green onions and sesame seeds. So let me go take care of all of that and get to this review. Okay friends, before I put the garnish in, I have great news. Hopefully you can see it. Corn and tomato chunks. They were hiding in with the meatballs. I was a little surprised to see them because usually Ramen Talk has all of its stuff in separate pouches, but I'm glad everything's here. Really cool. Let's add the garnish. And check that out. I'd say that's a pretty successful reproduction of the photo on the packaging. Nice. Love when that happens. This smells really great. It reminds me of the tomato tonkotsu flavor, although obviously it kind of looks like a soup form of spaghetti and meatballs, which I'm not going to complain about. This is kind of cool in concept, if that's what this is. The consistency of the tomato broth is nice and hearty, and 4 meatballs in the pack total, so they didn't skimp. That's pretty good. All right, I'm just going to stir up the garnish and give this a try. All right, my patient friends, let's start talking about the noodles. Like I talked about before, I gave Ramen Talk's noodles a 10 out of 10 in every one of my older reviews. Even the one variety of theirs that I hated got a 10 out of 10 for the noodles. And that trend continues here. These are terrifically chewy. They have an amazing weedy texture to them. They cling to the broth perfectly, as you can see. Totally awesome. 10 out of 10 for the noodles once again. As far as the spice level goes, there is not anything in here that I would consider spicy. This is a very mellow tomato broth with no hint of spice. 0 out of 10 for spiciness. And so let's talk about all the flavor in the broth and the ingredients. Like I was saying earlier, between the consistency and the flavor, I'm now 99% positive that the broth base for this is the same broth that Ramen Talk uses in their tomato tonkotsu flavor, which means that this is excellent. There's a deep, rich tomato flavor with a corky backbone to it. It is salty, thick, comforting. There's a tinge of sweetness and acidity because it's tomato. There may also be a little bit of ketchup in this, but not a distracting amount. I think this hits just right as a tomato broth. In addition to that dynamite flavor of the soup base, we've got these big chunks of tomato in here, adding their own flavor and body to the broth. And they're really nice and tart. Like, honestly, reasonably fresh tasting for something that came out of a shelf-stable pouch. Like, you buy a jar of packed tomatoes from the supermarket, yeah, this is kind of what that is. Really good. The corn, which I usually complain about, is perfect in this broth. A little crunch, a little sweetness. It's doing what corn is supposed to do, and it's not a distraction. The onions are plentiful and tasty enough for being freeze-dried. The sesame seeds offer a nice crunchy texture in contrast to the other ingredients. But you all want to know about these meatballs, right? I said earlier that I think they're beef, and honestly, I can't quite tell by taste if they are or not. But they're great. They're well seasoned, firm texture, not mushy. There's definitely some kind of filler or binder in here because it's a very smooth texture, but I've absolutely had way worse meatballs than this. These are really good. All right, let me try to wrap this up. I gave the tomato tonkotsu variety a 9 out of 10 because the flavor was great, but the included piece of chashu that they threw in there was just okay. This time around, we've got pretty much the same broth, but with much better meat products included in the form of these meatballs, plus the excellent additional toppings of tomato and corn. I really have nothing to complain about. This is a wonderful product. No surprise, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10 score. Somewhere between an Italian pasta with tomato sauce and an Asian-style tomato tonkotsu soup, this exists, and I love it. If you like tomato broth, keep an eye out for this on Ramen Talk's website, or see if your local stores carry it. I've seen a few people on Reddit lately asking about tomato-based ramen, and there's really not a whole lot of it out there to recommend as there are other flavors like soy sauce or tonkotsu. This is a perfect combination of tasty meatballs and savory tomato soup. It does kind of fall in that realm of Italian-Asian fusion, but I think it absolutely works. This is something I'm definitely going to buy again, and I really can't wait to turn off the camera and finish this. Before I do that, let me just kind of shill a little bit for Ramen Talk and say that if you are an instant noodle fan and live in the US or UK or anywhere else that Ramen Talk is sold and you haven't tried them yet, you're missing out. Yes, they're expensive, but they are a complete meal in a bag, so you don't need to worry about scrounging up your own proteins or other garnishes if you don't want to. These are some of the best noodle products out there, and I'm continually amazed that they're not more popular. If this or any of their other flavors appeal to you, take the plunge, for real. I don't think you'll regret it. So now that I know this exists, I will be making sure to stop by S-Mart a lot more frequently in the hopes of finding more new Ramen Talk products in the future. But for now, this is the only new one I've got, so you'll have to wait a little while. Hopefully more good stuff is coming from them sometime soon. With that, I will sign off now, and I hope you'll join me next time when I review something completely different here on Noodle Journey.